This is 08:55 hours GMT, which is also the time 8:55 a.m. in London, UK, on Sunday, the 24th of January 2021. Now, this is the Sunday Times that's running a long overdue headline. And it's not a revelation at all, it's obvious. It has been the case for years now. And the subheadings underneath that splash banner heading included are these 4 subheadings. Fewer people now regard themselves as British. So soon after Brexit, I mean, this is something that should have been extensively reported by the Sunday Times, but obviously the Sunday Times is controlled, the editorial line and narrative is controlled by arch-racist, arch-Brexiteer Rupert Dirty Digger Murdoch. So despite the fact that the Sunday Times editorially has pretended to be not brazenly Brexiteering as compared to the scum belonging to the same group of Fleet Street titles owned and controlled by Dirty Digger Rupert Murdoch. Despite the fact that this is the pretense that they are not brazenly Brexiteering. Both the Sunday Times and the Times have, in the last 5 calendar years, covering the substantive duration of the Brexiteering lunacy, have published with extreme reluctance any reservations against Brexit, despite the fact that the evidence has been there, glaring, staring in the eye. Okay, so we should be talking more about the Sunday Times and the Times in relation to Brexit and the identity of, quote, Britain. Now, here is a stupid headline on the same Sunday Times, same front page, which reads, well, it's a heading, Johnson beats his European Union rivals to bag Biden call. Now, what a stupidity. The fact that Biden got a call from Johnson or vice versa constitutes nothing except that it may be the Johnson cabal's side that has been rushing to have that call. And it is not of any significance whatsoever. But the Sunday Times and the others in the Fleet Street are running the line now after the inauguration of Joe Biden in the office of US President, so-called. They will overplay, overstate, overhype even the slightest contacts between Johnson-fronted cabal and Joe Biden's administration. This is the same technique and the tactic that Johnson has made a career out of. For example, he lies. For example, he said the hordes of Turkish people would invade Britain if Britain didn't vote to leave the European Union. Facts don't matter to him or to Gove or other liars. For Turkey, or for the people of Turkish origin or Turks, millions of Turks to invade Britain, let's say that the invasion was intended to mean physically arriving rather than military invasion. And the numbers were intended to have the impact of making the majority of the Little Englanders, gullibles, even more crazy than they already had been made to be when it came to the UK's membership of the European Union. So when Johnson lied that millions of Turks would invade Britain because they would be using the European Union to do that, the gullibles believed that to be the case. It cannot be a case for another few decades. In any case, so many things will happen between now and few decades later, or even earlier, that may make the European Union less relevant than it has been so far. Some things may happen, alliances may need to be formed, including economic alliances, caused directly by the impact and the implications and the repercussions, the consequences of the attacks on the planet. Environmental issues may force alignments that have so far been not recognized by the main careerist politicals anywhere. And so therefore, this image of Johnson beating his European Union rivals to beg Biden call is so stupid that it has to be denounced and rejected on the very words as early as possible, as soon as possible, which I am doing. It says that having a call with the new administration fronted by Joe Biden constitutes some kind of achievement. And in the piece and in the news following that, there has been no substance attached to that call that actually justifies the Sunday Times or any other Fleet Street titles using this kind of wording, that the call was proof that Johnson was ahead in relationships with the Joe Biden-fronted American political administration as compared to the European Union. The European Union is not comparable to a single country. European Union is an organization, a block of nearly 30 member states. So the comparison is completely with unlike, and without any substance. So as I said, despite the fact that they pretend to be not as brazen as the scum or the Daily Mail group in opposing the European Union. Now they are admitting that they are the ones who are obsessed with the European Union, even after they have got the Brexit quote done. To quote Boris Johnson's lying utterance on that concept. Now, that is the one that is there. Second one we have diagnosed. And what else we have said is that the Sunday Times, in the 5 calendar years of Brexit lunacy, failed or chose not to publish evidence that it had about how bad things would become economically in terms of the various economic dependence that the British kind of economy has on its business contacts with the European Union member states. And the Sunday Times didn't publish the evidence that it had knowledge of and was aware of. And if it wasn't, it should have been aware of, because even the Financial Times, even the Independent, which is exclusively now online, but owned by the Two Beards. Two Beards is the name given to him by Private Eye, the satirical magazine. So the Two Beards boasts there are about 100 or so journalists working across the world for the Independent. Remember what number that is, 100 journalists. Now, 100 journalists, each of them equipped with money, resource, and access to resources that have never been available at the time of any relevant action to our movement. But we have been consistently sharing in public our knowledge of what the evidence is about the wrongness and wrongfulness of the behavior of the government, the political parties, the central government departments, the central government departmental agencies, executive agencies, and central government departments, kind of so-called parliamentary scrutiny body called the select committees in the House of Commons. And the select committees were already on the facts of their behavior, or on the facts of the behavior of the members. They had already been discredited. Absolutely all of them except one. I shall come to that one, which was chaired by Margaret Hodge, who since those days when she was chair of the Public Accounts Committee has become notorious for her hateful campaign against the Labour Party and against the person, Jeremy Corbyn. And it was her claims against Jeremy Corbyn that fueled the persistence and the perpetuation of the lying, demonizing agenda in the Fleet Street papers, to the effect that Corbyn was completely declared openly by the Sun and the newspapers owned by the Murdoch. And what Margaret Hodge did was to give substance, or the appearance of substance, to a completely false set of allegations that had been invented against Jeremy Corbyn. The short summary of this is that regardless of what Margaret Hodges' amount of influence on the discrediting of the Labour Party as then led by Jeremy Corbyn. Now, the damage that has been done to the Labour Party by the likes of Margaret Hodge is not going to be repaired in the foreseeable future. Not because Margaret Hodge is in any way as active in contamination of the image of the Labour Party, but the damage has been so lasting and so deep rooted and so widespread that regardless of who has been the leader incumbent after Jeremy Corbyn was ousted as leader, regardless of who the Labour Party's current leader is, the image politically, the image morally, the image ethically and psephologically, that is in terms of election, the image of the Labour Party in Parliament remains fragile and weak, untrustworthy, and toxic. So, the accountability that the failures of the Boris Johnson fronted cabal and the cabal that was fronted before him by Theresa May and the cabal that was fronted before her by David Cameron, they have been damaging the facts of accountability and answerability by the political kind of careerists to the people, to the electors. And Fleet Street has failed to tell the truth of events that were happening at the time every single day about the Brexiteers. The Sunday Times never published the lies of the Brexiteers, calling them lies and accusing the Brexiteers of lying and inventing lies. Now, that is very central to the discussion and to the evaluation of what today's Sunday Times is saying about the future of the United Kingdom. And the future is non-existent. I mean, this is a very clear admission that there is not only no taking back of controls, but there is nothing that can define who controls what and who was behind the rubbishy, corrupt, criminal, racist slogan, taking back control. When Jeremy Corbyn was already leader of the Labour Party, while Cameron was still there as leader of the Conservatives and therefore leader of the UK kind of government, Jeremy Corbyn visited Calais, the place in France, in connection with the overhyped kind of interest by Corbyn in the refugee kind of camps. And David Cameron speaking immediately during the Prime Minister's questions, so-called, immediately after Corbyn had visited Calais, David Cameron scolded Jeremy Corbyn and mocked him. And he did that by brazen racist contempt for Corbyn for visiting the Calais. And the central content of that mocking by David Cameron was a reference to the fantasy, which is not based on the fact that Corbyn had met a bunch of either refugees or asylum seekers. That particular quotation remains editorially subject to correcting or updating on in due course. And the bunch of refugees or a bunch of asylum seekers, almost all the people in the European Union countries, including in France, almost all of them were seeking humanitarian refuges on every count. And yet, not a single Labour Party MP stood up to distance themselves from racist attack on the refugees, and they didn't solidarize with the leader of the Labour Party for going to Calais and meeting the desperate situation being endured by the victims of the racist barrier and the ban on seeking asylum while on the soil of Britain, which is what the law, the treaties, international treaties that the UK was already signed up to, demanded. So that was exactly 5 calendar years ago. This week, 27th of January 2016, so the Guardian quoted Cameron as saying that Jeremy Corbyn would let a bunch of migrants from the so-called Calais jungles come to Britain during an exchange of over how much corporation tax Google has been asked to pay. Corbyn asked the Prime Minister if he thinks Google's effective 30% of tax is a good deal for the British public. Cameron responds by listing ways he thinks Corbyn and Labour are not acting in the UK's best interests, including meeting with people in the Calais camp who want to come to Britain. And that is the video that we are going to hopefully post on our social media accounts, the Twitter account for Khoodeelaar and also the Facebook account for Khoodeelaar campaign. This is taken from the television channel called Parliament TV. Now, Parliament TV, as opposed to the BBC and ITV and Channel 4 News, Parliament TV is broadcast featuring all these activities, but it's not really followed up, and it doesn't follow up contextually, and it doesn't actually analyze the contents of what is broadcast. And our campaign actually began to broadcast and publish blogs about the contents and the role of the Parliament television. As soon as we were able to establish the shallowness of that channel. And so when Cameron condemned Jeremy Corbyn for meeting a bunch of migrants, it was our immediate response that we called it racist, ignorant, corrupt, and we also condemned the silence of the Labour Party MPs who were already in place as being elected mayor in 2000 in the actual contents and the context of the observation by the racist David Cameron and the silence on the part of the MPs that were allegedly claiming to be loyal to the leadership of Corbyn. I'm not expecting that the others who were never loyal to Corbyn would have felt that Cameron's racist, hostile mocking of Corbyn was that bad. So what we have got in the post-Brexit kind of reports in the Sunday Times, and as we've been reading the other papers on Fleet Street, is that the cost of Brexit is going to go up, is going up. And the editorial is so stupid in that Sunday Times, the headline to the editorial is so stupid that we have to read the headline out and the first paragraph at least. It says Johnson's next test will be to take back control of the Union. They're referring to Union as in the United Kingdom. And they say that something is stirring in the kingdom. Our comprehensive State of the Union survey today shows rising support for a breakup of the UK. Half of Scottish voters want and expect another referendum on independence, while a similar number in Northern Ireland want a poll on reunifying the island of Ireland. This is not something that can be swept under the carpet by the government. Indeed, along with the rebuilding the economy, It is the big post-pandemic political challenge. Now, in the rest of it is the same line. And the line is against especially the people of Scotland, as represented by the SNP. And we shall come back to that one in due course, probably later in the next edition or so. But on the same page, there is a comment byline to India Knight, a woman called India Knight. She is the daughter of Andrew Knight, who had long connection with the Murdoch media empire. Now, India Knight is a bourgeois woman who has no need in terms of physical, material needs, and to go on about the state of poverty, discrimination, and all the rest of it. Even if she didn't get the money from the Murdoch empire as the columnist or the writer, she would still be able to live quite comfortably for the rest of her life. So that's India Knight, and she is a white woman, despite the fact that her name is India. She doesn't seem to have any direct kind of ancestral relationship or connections with the subcontinent as far as the contents of her writings are any guide. Now here, a child killed by children. We cannot accept this. Of course, this should have been the headline or to her pieces 100 times before now, because children are killing other children. And we should not be accepting this to the society, but we have been. And the reason why India Knight is not kind of acknowledging the original unique diagnostic work of the Khoodeelaar campaign in this very context is not because she doesn't know, but because she is practicing racist denial of the original intellectual, far-reaching work being done by the Khoodeelaar campaign and by the movement that the Khoodeelaar campaign is part of. Because we have her on the Twitter account that we maintain from the Khoodeelaar campaign and have done the maintaining since August 2008. And we publish periodic comments and rejoinders and retweets based on her tweeting activities. So why am I going on about this? Because the contents of her column about the children, killing children, almost exclusively, not entirely, but exclusively refers to Asian Muslims and includes the movement that is called Black Lives Matter. And she is talking about that. And we have been talking about that for months now, and we shall be doing the talking in due course in later parts of this program.